Hello. Welcome to the first episode of Reading Between the Lions, a brand new podcast hosted by yours truly, Elijah Lyons. I am so excited to get started, and so as I obviously want to make a good first impression, I regret that the first thing I have to tell you is that 2 days ago, my body disliked hand lotion that I used, and now my sinuses are clogged. Sorry about that. And to begin transparently, the second thing I have to say isn't very exciting either. I don't know that I'm going to be very good at this, honestly. That's a bit of a concern of mine. I'm good at talking. I'm good at randomly talking. I'm better when there's people present. I'm not good when I'm not in front of an audience. So this is kind of a first time thing for me. I'm going to put this out there and see what you all think. So chances are you did not discover this podcast organically. Hi, Mom. So I just wanted to say thank you for putting in the effort to search out the podcast and put the time in to listen to it. If you hate it, I'm sorry, but if you like it, well, I'm really, really glad that you were able to hear it. So I've got some notes here to hopefully keep me on track a little bit, but also not, I don't want them to confine me too much because I want things to be spontaneous and fun. We'll see if I succeed. Now, as we start, I would like to define podcast. And I didn't look this up. This is very spur of the moment. And so it may not fit a technical definition of podcast, but for the purposes of this class, a podcast is a form of media in which person or peoples sit and talk about their opinions on things. They share information, and if we're talking about mine specifically, they get very famous and very wealthy from it. And everybody really loves it. Everybody really likes the podcast. So that's the definition we're using. Why am I making a podcast? Why did I decide to sit down in front of this camera and talk for a period of time? Well, first off, if there's one thing that this world needs, it is obviously another white man sharing his opinion on things. So there's that. But also, I really enjoy connection with people, interacting with people. And of course, I have other forms of social media, Instagrams, TikToks, and things like that I always enjoy when people give me feedback or, want to talk about things. And I'm hoping that this podcast can develop into sort of a way for me to bring people on and discuss things that are entertaining, and also for me to respond to people in their questions, which I don't have. I asked people for questions, and they didn't want to ask me any. So I don't have any for you today, but the hope is that there will be some next time. So today I will just be talking, and you can either listen or you cannot. That out of the way. That all out of the way. I currently get paid to work, but I would like to also be paid for being an interesting person. And I hear that some people are able to manage that, and so I thought I would try. Now, to clarify, I don't want to be an influencer, although that could be a very good confidence boost. As I mentioned before, I want to build a platform for connection and for interaction, and also possibly to create performance outlets. Sometimes I dance or sing when I'm not booed and yelled at. I enjoy it. And it's great to have spaces to do that in. The question that is raised there is can a podcast be successful in making one's life interesting? Or is a podcast only interesting because one's life is already interesting? I would argue, I don't know. I've never done a podcast before. So I will get back to you on that. We'll have to check in on that at a time in the future. If this podcast is successful, then it was because it's my public service to share my insights and fascinating acquaintances with the world. If it's not, then I just wanted a recording of my voice to look back on in 20 years when I'm sad and miserable and everything in my life has failed. I really hope it's the former. To illustrate the next point I'm going to make, I need to tell you a story. Once upon a time, I walked into a restaurant that I had been to several times before. I walked to the counter. The waitress was very friendly and smiled at me because she clearly recognized me and asked me, "What would you like today?" "I'll have my usual." Now, this was a very busy establishment, and they didn't remember what I'd ordered the last time, and I kind of assumed that they wouldn't, but I still asked for my special because I wanted to feel special. I think most of us do that, want to feel special. And I mean, side note, you are special. You're incredibly special. I'm really glad. You're special just for listening to this podcast, but even if you don't, you're still special. But really, people are way more special than we give them credit for. If we take the time to get to know people and learn about them, it opens up a world of exciting possibilities. Sometimes people are in a place in their life where they suck, but they don't always have to be that way. Getting to know them can help too. That is a topic I will probably cover at some point in the future. But the important thing is, life is special. Let's make it clear how special life is. Really, that honestly brings me to the point behind the name of the podcast, Reading Between the Lions, besides being an incredibly clever pun that I thought of. It's also a reference to what I believe is the importance of looking into things more deeply, looking beyond the surface of things, people and situations, and hopefully that's what I'll be able to do on this podcast. I'll be inviting some people that I find fascinating to talk to them and asking them questions that dig a little more deeply than, what is your job? What do you do for work? And do you have any new job prospects that are slightly less dreary? It's also an excuse to dress up. Which, if you're trying to attract people based on your body, it's about the clothes you take off. But if you're trying to, fortunately for me, attract people with personality, it's about the clothes you put on. So I'm glad that that's a distinction I decided to make. I have crazy things planned for this podcast. Many of them may not see the light of day, and that's probably good. I've some ideas that I've had so far. I may make a meal for one of my guests, so that could either be an incentive or a warning for them. That way you all can listen to mouth noises and enjoy either feeling left out or feeling very fortunate that you are not in the same position as my guest as they eat or pretend to eat what I've made for them. I've also got some crazy ideas like, what if we painted? What if we did a painting throughout the podcast and then revealed it at the end? That would be fascinating, I think. Oh, something that side note, I think is important to know about me is I love to do impressions. And any chance I get, I will do one. Now, there's nothing to prompt me into an impression right now, so you're fortunately spared from that for the moment. But just fair warning for the future. If my voice changes, it's still me. Don't be scared. Larry the Cucumber isn't actually in here. It's just me. I think the time has come for our first interview. Now, I looked around for some interesting people, and I couldn't find one. So, the person that we're interviewing today is a very special, but somewhat uninteresting person. And you'll see what I mean when we get into that segment. But here we go to the studio, which is just this room, except filmed on a different day, to interview Elijah Clay Lyons. Okay, so today in our studio we have Elijah Lyons. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to be here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so is everything to your liking?
Yeah, the chair's a little wobbly. You could have fixed that a little bit, but...
Yeah, no, there's only room in the budget for one comfy chair, and I get that.
Okay.
So, any other complaints, or were you ready to get going?
Yeah, no, go right ahead.
Okay, all right. So, for starters, my hard-hitting questions here.
Yeah?
What do you do for work?
Okay, yeah, I'm a performer. I've worked as a dancer. And
Exotic?
Some have described my movements as enticing and enthralling, but no, not quite exotic, no.
Okay, gotcha. Disappointing.
So yeah, I'm an actor and a dancer, but primarily I'm a singer.
Oh, do you think you could please not demonstrate that for us?
I wouldn't dream of it.
So, you show off for a living.
Well, my living comes mostly from the odd jobs I work in between.
Really?
Yeah, they're called starving artists for a reason.
So, why do you do it? What's your motivation?
Now, I would answer that, but it sounds like something you could base an entire episode on. Are you sure you want to use that up right now?
Oh, you're right. Thank you for being so eternally clever and pointing that out to me.
It's what I do. It's what I'm here for.
Thank you. Thank you.
What can I say?
Thank you.
Just watching out for you, big man.
Thank you. Other than someday being able to make rent by making a fool of yourself, what is a goal or a dream you've had for a long time?
I've always wanted to be in the same room as someone as smart as you.
Thank you. That's really sweet.
Yeah, dream come true right here, for sure. Been looking forward to it.
So how about one that isn't based solely on free time and basic editing skills?
Okay, now I have always wanted to travel to France.
Are you gluten intolerant?
No.
Then that sounds très bien. Have you been practicing your French?
No.
Oh, so you're focused mainly on like the sites and the places you want to see and all that?
I haven't quite gotten to that yet.
Oh wow, so the plan is quite literally you want to go to France.
That's as far as I've gotten. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, that's what matters. Dream, whatever, size of dream that is.
I really want to.
Earlier you mentioned that you were insecure about your body.
I don't believe I did.
You said that fortunately for you, the audience, you don't have to take your clothes off.
Okay, you said that, not me.
Same thing.
That was a humorous statement, not a comment on body negativity.
So you'd be fine with taking your clothes off now.
What?
I feel like our Spotify listeners won't really be affected by this, but the YouTube people might get a kick out of it.
No, I'm not. That's not. Mm-mm.
So you are insecure.
I have a sense of common decency.
What's wrong with your body?
That's another topic we should save for another podcast.
Do you care to?
No. Stop.
Seems I touched a nerve there.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Is there any point in continuing the interview at this point, or
The gimmick seems to have run its course.
I'm sure there's more I can do with it.
It's getting sad.
I will call it quits there. Back to you, me.
Thank you for that charming interview, Elijah. It was wonderful to have you, and hopefully we'll never have you on again. So one thing I'd like to touch on, starting a social media career or attempting to build one based on a podcast seems like a bit of a risky thing to do. Now you may be wondering, what made you think that was a good idea? The answer is nothing. I'm still not convinced it's a good idea, but it's worth a shot, and I'd rather do something than do nothing. So whatever that means, but I can't wait to see where this goes. I cannot wait to see what opportunities may arise, what people I might get to meet through this, and obviously if it goes nowhere, then I apologize for this, and forgive me for wasting your time. But I hate wasting time, so hopefully I didn't do that. I thought I'd mention, I've never listened to podcasts before. So this is kind of, in order to get ready for this, I listened to one singular podcast, several episodes, but just one podcast, and I really enjoyed it. But it was an individual that I find fascinating, and I'm not going to tell you who it is. And you get to guess throughout this process. If you could, I want to see if you can see the influences of that podcast on this one. I'm not copying it. Far be it from me, I'm more original than that. But I have certainly taken inspiration from the direction of that podcast. Hopefully, mine takes off as well as theirs did. But I'm not... What can I say that doesn't give it away? I don't have the qualities that they do, so I'm not quite as entertaining, I don't think. You all can tell me in angry text messages or riots. You could riot. I'm not suggesting a riot, but I'm not counting out the possibility. All right, this podcast that you are hopefully still listening to, is hopefully the first of a lot of content I'm planning to make under the banner of Lyons Productions, another very clever name that I personally came up with all by myself. My YouTube page, it's Elijah Lyons, is available already to subscribe to, and so you can get notified anytime I have a ridiculous, crazy idea that I decide to actually make. So far, I've got plans in the work for a limited series where I play all the characters. That sounds more interesting in my head. Of course, more podcast episodes, some covers, some original music, possibly an animated story, but for that I'd need help of people who know how to animate, because I don't. I'm hoping to release, well, the original plan was to release an episode a month, but the more I've been doing this, the more excited I've been getting about it, and I don't know if it's a good idea to ramp up production, but I may be stepping up to bi-weekly, releasing episodes. Don't hold me to that, because I hate missing deadlines, but I'll do my best. Also, I want to hear from you, both of you. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please email them to readingbetweenthelionspodcast@gmail.com, and I will read, respond to, and ignore those comments respectively. This being the first episode, I don't have much more to talk about, because I work best when I respond to things, and there's nothing to respond to, besides the horrific echoes inside my brain. I'm okay. As I have no one to speak to, or questions to answer, the first episode will most likely end a little bit short. Just kidding, here's a weird story. Alright, now it's time for a really fun fact! So, The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum was most likely intended as a political allegory about the U.S.'s struggle with leaving the gold standard, which was a big deal at the time of its writing. Speaking of L. Frank Baum, his initials were used by author Gregory Maguire to name the main character of his little book, Wicked. He named the character LFB, spelled out as Elphaba. So it's not really spelled out. It's not really, but it's like inspired. Kind of like the Wicked musical is just kind of loosely inspired by the book itself. Like, the book itself is also kind of a political, well, it's not a political allegory. It is straight up political. Elphaba's she's just a political activist for the whole thing. They debate that the whole time. Her and Glinda's friendship is kind of like not really a thing at all. They're roommates at Shiz, and then they kind of bump into each other later in life. But that's kind of it. So, yeah. And how's about that Wicked movie that's totally out at the time of filming this? It's already come out when I filmed this, and I've seen it. Woo! Great movie. I don't know. I haven't. Yeah. Oh my gosh! Look, found a piece of candy on the ground. Anyway, yeah, that was a fun fact. Hope you had fun facting. Fun with fun fact. Bye. You see, you never know what I'll come up with, and neither do I. It's terrifying. I refuse to restrict myself to a strict time limit, but my goal is to reach roughly half-hour episodes each time. When I get particularly interesting people on, I'd imagine it will go a bit longer, but we'll see. And please respond. I cannot stress how much I need this. This episode, as well as future episodes, will be available on Spotify, Apple Music, and YouTube. Well, definitely YouTube, because I already know how to release things on YouTube. The other two I'll have to learn, so take that with a grain of salt. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Music, congratulations to me. I figured it out. If you're on YouTube, hello. You can see my face. You may have no way of knowing whether I was successful in releasing it on the other platforms. So go find out for me, will ya? Follow me or something, or however it works. Subscribe so I can know people are listening. I don't know how to say goodbye. I don't know how to let go of this beautiful time we've had together. But you need to get back on with your day and not listen to the ramblings of a madman. So thank you for tuning in for the first episode of Reading Between the Lions. I have been and will continue to be your host, Elijah Lyons. Please join us next time.